we said we're the biggest brand in the UK, but the Sunday Times, on the figures that were in the Sunday Times last weekend, we are the biggest e-cigarette supplier in the UK at the moment. There were three things that I was just going to talk about. Was one, our surprise, one, our pride, and one, what our concern. Surprise, why are we surprised? And I think it's picking up on what Martin has just said. Why aren't we all rejoicing collectively on the massive reduction in tobacco consumption, use, and the associated dependency and harm? We should be all rejoicing. I mean, you know, the tobacco companies have told me offline that, you know, our sales are reducing their sales. So, you know, I don't understand why we're not all rejoicing about that, all those that have an interest in public health and reducing the harm caused to public health by tobacco. So that's why we're surprised, and where we're proud, or where we take tremendous pride. I think when I picked this up, okay, I've only been working for 6 months more in the industry, but we take great pride in what the public health experts and the academics are saying about our work and the contribution we can make. And we're not saying we're perfect companies by any stretch, but we do take pride in eminent scientists and so forth saying you're making a massive contribution to public health. So we take pride in that. We take enormous pride in what our consumers are telling us. And there's a real absurdity here. We get a lot of testimonials back from our consumers, and the MHRA have told us we can't print them. I mean, you couldn't make that up. Consumers write into us and they say your products have given a life-changing experience, and the absurdities of the regulations are we can't even print those, we can't even tell people about them, because we'll have people who don't want us to succeed telling us that we're making claims and we must therefore be a medicine. But we are, nevertheless, and I picked this up from working in the company, that all the people who work in e-lights, or a very large majority of them, take great pride in what they're doing because they hear from consumers who are ringing up and saying, get me more, or whatever. I'm not saying that, of course we have dissatisfied customers as well, but the vast majority are saying you're doing great stuff. And the third element of our pride is we've taken a leading role in the regulation of the industry, because it wasn't my foresight, but it was my colleagues' foresight that they realised a few years ago we've got to have a minimum product quality and standard, and they've been at the forefront of driving that and making sure that there is a regulatory framework. And we get sick to death of people telling us and actually putting a myth out there that e-cigarettes are not regulated. That is a lie, and I wish people would stop saying it. There's a welter of rules and regulations. And we have to make sure we comply with them all. But we've been at the forefront of creating that. It's called for those who don't know, it's called the Industry Standard of Excellence. It's marshalled at the moment by the Electronic Cigarette Industry Trade Association. We wish more companies would join it. We wish every single company that made electronic cigarettes would subscribe to that. It makes sure that you've got pharmaceutical grade nicotine, that you're complying with all the different consumer regulations, and it goes in and it audits. It comes into our warehouse and goes through everything to make sure we're compliant with all the welter of regulations. And by the way, we've said to the MHRA and we've said to the Department of Health and everybody, look, there it is. Tell us where it's faulty. We want to make it as good as it can possibly be and create our own standard. So we take pride in those three things. Our concern, well, basically, we think we want a level playing field. That's all we're asking for, a level playing field. Treat us in a level manner with our competitors. We are not trying to reduce the sales of Nicorette. We are trying to provide an alternative to cigarettes, as simple as that. And you know, we want to be on a football playing field, and people are trying to say, no, you should be in the boxing ring, we're going to rule you like a boxing match. You couldn't really make it up. We are not seeking to compete with a product which is sold to make you stop smoking, or help you stop smoking. This came up in Brussels last week, didn't it, Clive? This conversation about what is a level playing field. And the German MEP who's leading on the committee said, you know, it's got to be a level playing field, and you've got to be competing against nicotine replacement therapy products. And it just does not make sense. We want to be on a level playing field with cigarettes and consumer products. If we want to make a claim that they will help you stop smoking, no issues there at all. Just because they are helping people doesn't mean to say we have to market them and sell them as that. Primarily, they're an alternative to cigarettes. And actually, just on that quickly, we were in the House of Commons today, and the Labour MP we were talking to said, "Oh, smashing products, because it just means I'm not smoking so much. I'm never going to stop smoking, but this is really, really helpful, and I'm enjoying them, and it gives me something to reduce the amount I smoke." There's somebody who doesn't want to stop smoking, but he just wants to smoke less. What do we do with people like that? We do see ourselves as a responsible company, and we've always wanted to engage with even our critics and all the rest of it. So at the very beginning, we've been hunting out. We want to speak with Action on Smoking and Health, with the BMA, with the British Heart Foundation, with Cancer Research. Everybody's got an interest in tobacco control issues, and we want to speak with government and all the rest of it. We want to address our critics' concerns. And the 3 points that we heard until this afternoon, that we heard from all of these groups, were that they were concerned about it being a gateway to smoking, and they thought we were marketing to minors. Well, I think Lynn has addressed the point about gateway to smoking, but the marketing to minors, well, we could agree a voluntary code tomorrow morning with government and say, it's already in our regulation that we won't market to minors, but we could quite easily have a voluntary code and address marketing to minors. Undermining smoke-free legislation, this bizarre point that gets put out that we're in danger of renormalising smoking, whatever that might mean. In response to that, we say, well, why don't we try and normalise e-smoking? Wouldn't it be better, as Professor Britton has so eloquently put, that if everybody turned to e-cigarettes, there'd be 5 million less deaths? To me, it's sort of slightly clutching at straws, and my colleagues know I keep on saying this, but I think we should do a survey nationally about if you're a smoker and you're forced outside to have an e-cigarette, will you light up a conventional fag, or will you have an e-cigarette? And I think you'd find it would be a very, very high percentage. So we want to treat people in the same way as we're treating smokers who are trying to use a safer product. Again, I don't really understand the logic. Having said that, we're very keen to work around and come up with the right framework. And the third point is the involvement of the tobacco industry. For some reason, because they're involved, or they might get involved, this is a bad thing. And I think, well, I don't think that's a very grown-up argument myself, but I think there needs to be a slightly more grown-up debate. I'm a bit disappointed to hear Martin suggest that now the emphasis is on making sure that every single product makes every single person tries it. I think the experience of quitting smoking, lots of people, no two people quit smoking in the same way. And it's particularly disappointing when ASH, we have been looking to try and speak to them, and now we're getting another argument being put in us, which it sounds like it's a hurdle for us to jump over rather than a collaborative debate. Back to the first point, working together. And that's what we want to do. We want to work with everybody and build on the success that we've had so far.